Hi, everyone. I'm Zeline from the product marketing team here at Heroku. Thanks for joining us today. We're just going to give folks about 2 more minutes to trickle in before we get started. So settle in, grab some water, and we'll get started shortly. Alrighty, we'll give it 30 more seconds, then we're going to get started. All right, we're going to get started. So while we wait for just a little bit more, just a couple quick housekeeping items. Q&A. We'll have dedicated time for Q&A at the end. There is a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to drop your questions into the Q&A box at any time throughout the session. We'll be keeping an eye on it throughout the session, and we'll have time to go over questions at the end. And now, for my official duty as your host, I have to give the classic forward-looking statement disclaimer. So here it goes. We may have to make forward-looking statements during today's session. These are based on current expectations and are subject to change. Please don't make any purchase decisions based on anything we talk about today that's not currently available. Alrighty, I'm super excited to introduce our two speakers who are here with us today. We've got Ethan from our product management team who works directly on Fir, and we have Andy Fawcett from our developer relations team. You'll be hearing from both of them in just a bit. And with that, let's get things started. Ethan, over to you.
Yep. Hi, everybody. Thank you all for joining. Really excited to talk to you all about Fir and the new platform. Just a bit about me. I've been here at Heroku Salesforce for about 4 years, and I'm the product manager for the runtime. So I work really closely with our networking, infrastructure, control plane engineers, and all of the other engineering teams across Heroku. And yeah, we're really excited about our new platform and excited to talk to you all about it. And I'll hand it to Andy.
Hey, thanks, Ethan. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. We really appreciate you taking your time, and we hope this will be a worthwhile use of it. I'm Andy Fawcett. I have been at Salesforce just coming up to around 9 years now, and I've been in the product role and more recently developer relations. I've been in the Salesforce ecosystem for many years, and building and architecting on the platform is what I love, and delivering solutions to customers using Salesforce technologies is the best. So I'm delighted to be here to run the demo for you. So back to Ethan to walk us through what it's all about and why we built it.
Yeah, just to give you all a bit of a walkthrough of what we're going to talk about. I'll kick it off with a little bit of the deep dive, talk about the what and the why from the product side, talk about all the goodness and some of the new things on Fir, and then I'll hand it over to Andy, who will do a live demo for us and showcase all of those kind of new functionalities, and then we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. So getting started, like I said, the what and the why from the product side. Why did we build Fir in the first place, and what is Fir? So if you know anything about Heroku, if you've been a Heroku customer before, you know that Heroku originally kind of pioneered that web application deployment, the get push Heroku main as one of those main key marked features of the Heroku platform. That was a while ago, and we know that the world and specifically the cloud native world has really taken off based on some of those primitives that had started at Heroku. And that world has evolved, and we're looking to evolve with it and actually really capture some of those tailwinds of the industry to better leverage cloud native platforms for Heroku internally and especially for our customers. So that was kind of the main product thesis, is that we are now in a new space. There's new optionality for our developers, for our customers, and how do we capitalize on that? And how do we provide a platform for our customers that they can also capture those tailwinds? So starting with kind of like the core business problem that Heroku customers are used to. These are the same. These are the same things that we looked at for Fir. When there's a complex ecosystem of a lot of different options and tools that you need integrations for, especially when you have a business or you have engineers that really just want to focus on their custom code, how do you simplify that experience? How do you minimize the operational overhead when it comes to some of the more complex things of managing things at scale? That's a lot of those day two operations. Once you've launched your web application, once you're running your business, how do you make sure everything is secure? How do you know everything that's going on in your application? And finally, how do you really get time to market and time to value faster by utilizing some of these technical tools? Those are the things our customers care about. Those are the things that are a bit complicated when it comes to running web applications and running things on the cloud. And so how can Heroku step in to do that? Going a little bit deeper, as I mentioned, cloud native, the industry has really expanded. There are so many different options. There's so many different tools. And so in this new space of all these different options, how can Heroku be opinionated to help our developers build something great on a really great foundation? So one of the main things you'll see here mentioned is Kubernetes, and that's what Fir is completely the new platform for Heroku rebased on Kubernetes. So it captures immediately all of the out-of-the-box features, things like Carpenter packing, for example, and then translate that to our customers, as well as a bunch of other open standards that we'll talk about in just a second. And if you're really confused why I'm talking about a tree, and if you're not familiar with the background of Heroku, trees have always been the name of our tech stack. We've kind of redefined stack generation platform, but this is really our journey. Like I said, if you've been with us from the beginning, you knew about Aspen, about Bamboo. Cedar is our current platform. Cedar is the one that powers our online common runtime today, as well as our traditional private spaces that some of our customers may be aware of. And Fir is that next generation. It's the next tree. And we're really excited about how it really capitalizes on a lot of the strengths of Cedar, but like I said, in the cloud native space. So like I said, same roots, playing into the tree analogy, but stronger than ever. So one of the things you'll see through the things that I'm talking about in terms of the what and in terms of the demo is this is really still the same Heroku. That was one of the original product goals, is how do we utilize Kubernetes? How do we utilize some of these new modern tools, but keep the experience that we know our customers really like great, the developer first experience, the things that make Heroku really easy to use, really delightful to use. So that's really that focus on productivity for our developers, getting things up and off the ground really fast. But then also thinking about where can we go with this new platform and how can we grow? And some of the first things that we did, right, is kind of a bit more flexibility, a bit more power, and some things to help you all scale. So like I said, another kind of key factor you've probably seen if you've been around Heroku, people talk about the 12-factor apps, all of that still stays the same. Here on Fir, these are still the same primitives that we believe to be some of the most powerful things to make apps resilient and repeatable in the cloud native space. And so, yeah, like I said, a bit more of the same. These are the core value props that Heroku really shines at taking care of, the things that we really care about. And with Fir, it's still all of the same things. That next generation of Heroku captures those same business problems. It captures those same business solutions, but in this new cloud native landscape to better deliver for our customers. We ran a pilot with Fir. If any of you are listening and joined that, thank you so much for taking the time to evaluate the platform, and even more thanks for all the people that were giving us feedback. We were able to kind of really test that product value prop, see the differences between the two runtimes, evaluate the experience specifically in the front end and the CLI, and have a good understanding of what are some of our gaps and some of the next things that we really want to focus on. But again, reframing to one of the product goals was, we really wanted to keep that same Heroku magic, and we wanted to add some new things. So that's what we saw, a lot of great use of some of our new open telemetry tools and signals, as well as a lot of responses about, how this was still the same easy deployments, same easy process as traditional Heroku. And why use Fir? So I'm going to keep this slide pretty short. because I want to get to the demo. I want Andy to show, and I don't need to tell some of these things, but like I said, as you watch the demo, these are the three kind of key things to think about of like what our whys were from the product side is, again, how do we allow faster time to value, faster time to market for our developers? That comes from building and scaling and deploying. So think cloud native build packs when Andy's showcasing the demo. The next one is effortless trusted scalability. Everything is that you'll see is powered by Kubernetes. So we're leveraging all of that goodness from like a very industry trusted platform, especially when it comes to security and scalability. And then future-proof apps. These are things like think open telemetry. How do we keep our ecosystem growing? How do we keep our developers happy? And how do we make sure that when customers have their applications running, that they can either scale and know everything about them? And then finally, this also helps us with our accelerated roadmap. Like the internal win for us is that we can capitalize, like I said, on those tailwinds, and we can start cranking out new features that we know our customers are really excited about because of this new platform. And with that, I think I'm going to hand it to Andy, like I said, so he can show some of those really great things. Hey, Andy, you got to come off mute.
That always helps. Thank you, sir. Okay, let's get started with our demo of Fir, our next generation platform. So it all starts with creating a private space. And if you've logged in recently, you'll notice you do have these generation options. So we're just going to use demo Fir as the name of our space here. And I'm going to pick the Fir option, and it's as simple as that. We obviously have a variety of regions available at our disposal, and once we've clicked this space button, it will create our space. And those of you that have done this in Cedar will know immediately now there's the first difference. It's done it instantly. So this is an example of the things we're now able to change in the experience to speed things up and add extra value because we're building on Kubernetes. So now we've created our demo for space, and we need to deploy an application to it. So what we're going to do here is deploy .NET application. I've chosen this because .NET is a pretty new language for us. We announced it relatively recently. And of course, you can deploy all of the other regular language and apps on Fir as well. So what I'm going to do is use our new Visual Studio add-on for Heroku. I'm in Visual Studio here, and I'm going to click the deploy to Heroku button. Now, of course, the git push Heroku main still works, but I'm just using this as an opportunity to give you a highlight of this amazing new feature that keeps you focused inside Visual Studio. So I'm going to call this app Demo Fir, and I'm going to make sure that the owner is the dev rel, and the space that we just created should be here, which is indeed it is, which is the demo first space. So I'm going to go ahead and allow that to deploy, and we're going to talk about some other values of while it does that. And you can see it's immediately kicked off the deployment. So when we're working inside Cedar and we're looking to scale, we can do that horizontally and vertically, and this is the traditional way in which we do it. And we have very prescribed views on how much compute and RAM you have, depending on the type of tier that you pick. And likewise, when we actually come to change the horizontal scaling, we'll go up to 100 here and no more. When we contrast that, though, with an application that's running in Fir, we see the dialog looks immediately different, and we got now much more spectrum of matrix of options that exist in terms of CPU and number of RAM. And not only that, we've also got the lowest level of CPU and RAM that relates to what you had in Cedar as well. So you can move your applications into Fir and keep the same configuration as you wish, and then increase it accordingly. And of course, with the horizontal scaling, we've also been able to give, in fact, much greater horizontal scale capability all the way up to 255. And that is, in fact, able to be increased even further through conversations with support as well. So the next difference that we want to see here is the application itself is now using a technology called cloud native build packs. So build packs, hopefully many of you are familiar with as ways in which it can, Heroku in turns determines what your application is in terms of language and framework, and configures the build scripts and environment accordingly. We're using the build pack technology. Cloud native build packs is one of those technologies that's been incubating and driving in the industry, with Heroku driving it in the alongside many other technologies such as Kubernetes as well. And now we're able to bring it back into Heroku and use it natively. So if you've been using cloud native build packs, you're already able to start using those build packs with Heroku and deploying your applications. So we can see here we've got a .NET and a Procfile build pack that's been deployed. And you can go on Google for that. In fact, many of you that might be using Kubernetes right now can just start using cloud native build packs. It's a free technology and well worthwhile as a more optimal way for building your container images versus managing oodles of Docker files and such like. We also have, as you imagine, all the typical telemetry that's available as well. But the thing I'll mention here, and we'll start drilling into this in a moment, is we've invested in open telemetry as the de facto standard for handling telemetry in cloud native apps. And this whole dashboard uses that same API that we are now exposing to you, our customers, which is awesome because you know exactly that the information that you're seeing here, if you choose to use it, can be sent off. In this case, we're going to see it in Grafana, and it's the same information. We're using the same APIs that we're providing to you. And that API is open telemetry. As I mentioned, it's a cloud native computing foundation project. And you can go here and learn more about what OpenTelemetry is and the different languages and SDKs that it supports. So one of the things we're going to do today is use OpenTelemetry in Grafana. This is one of many services and applications that support OpenTelemetry. And there's a great section in our Dev Center. Many of you tell us that you love our Dev Center documentation, and indeed, we put a lot of effort to tell you about Fir and next generation Heroku, including OpenTelemetry. So much like you had with log drains before, you've got a series of commands to configure and connect telemetry to your chosen chosen tool. So in this case, I've chosen Grafana and I've gone and set up that configuration, and it provides you some authentication details that we're going to use to hook in to the application. And then we're going to take a look at that telemetry coming through. So while I've been talking, we'll see that the dyno has been deployed in Visual Studio Code. And now we're able to go and run the telemetry add command. One of the features that's neat, especially for demos, that's in Visual Studio, it'll recognize Heroku commands in shell scripts. So I'm just going to click the button to run that. And it's going to go ahead and add that telemetry drain to this application. So that's successfully been done. I'm going to press Q. So the other thing I need to know, this is a web app. I just need to get the URL to this web application, because the next thing we're going to do is start hitting the application and see what routing telemetry we get out of it when we do that. So that's the particular URL that we're looking for. So let's go over here and bring that application up. And that's our general getting started application. And hopefully we should start to see some of those log entries come through. Timing is always a bit of a challenge with OpenTelemetry sometimes. And we might revisit that while I go talk about some other things. I'll try the press me button. Okay, great. Phew. Okay, so as predicted, we're seeing some of that telemetry come through. There's a little bit of a lag, but eventually that works its way through. And we can see the log information coming through from Heroku in this case. But what we really want to see is log information coming through from your own applications and how that integrates. So to do that, there is a number of SDKs. Because OpenTelemetry is a standard, you can do that with a number of SDKs for Node, Spring Boot if you're using Java, or in this case, .NET. And these all allow you to integrate your own telemetry directly into your code. And the cool thing about it is it kind of embeds itself with ours so that it shows it in context. So what we've done here in our .NET application is we've configured our program.cs to configure OpenTelemetry. And now we've set up the right telemetry services in Heroku for you to just use the default configuration for your language. You don't need to be doing anything else to your application for those listeners to be configured. They're just running for you. So, and down here, when we click that button, you already saw me click it briefly a moment ago. We're going to output some user click this button telemetry. So imagine this might be some performance information or more detailed telemetry that you need on a process that you're running. So let's go once again and put that URL in here. And if I click the press me button, we should get some log information coming through. And looks like there is a bit of a lag today for that. So we're just going to try that a few more times. And there is a video of this. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so now we can see there's the telemetry, and if we open this band, that's literally. And here's what I was saying earlier about the kind of context. You're seeing it coming through in the context of our router telemetry, and then in fact the app name, the post that's coming through the URL, because I'm doing a HTTP post, and then ours. So it's really doing a great job beyond just logging that we used to do to stitch everything together in context, which is I personally find pretty darn awesome. So the next thing I want to allude to is what Ethan mentioned earlier, is that we've used cloud native build packs to not only leverage all the innovation in building container images in Heroku, but also because we hear from you that you want to be able to build those images locally, and in some cases run those images locally. So I'm just using the regular pack command inside my project directory, nothing special, nothing different about it, and giving it the particular builder here for Heroku, and it's gone ahead and built that and created a container image. And this is that container image running in Docker Desktop. And one of the great features of cloud native build packs is you have these layers, and it's really beneficial when it comes to patching your applications, or if you've got an operating system, a library update or particular layer of your application, then you can really get in and patch those layers very quickly without rebuilding your entire image. There's also additional features some of these tools offer to do things like software bill of materials to really inspect what's inside these images. So lots of reasons why it's beneficial for you to actually be able to build the container image and run it locally or introspect it. Of course, Heroku does that for you when it deploys to the service, but we just wanted to call that out, that it's one of the other benefits of using CNB. So last but not least, you're probably wondering about your add-ons. How do all of those work? Well, some of the add-ons are supported right now in Fir and some are not. So we've made it super easy for you to toggle in the Elements Marketplace and see which of those add-ons are supported. Of course, all the Heroku ones are right now, and some of the majority of the third-party ones are as well. And you can even see that when you're drilling into a particular add-on, you'll see down here in the bottom right-hand corner, supported generation, Cedar, and Fir. So we made it really easy for you to pre-check which add-ons you're using and which ones are supported in Fir currently at this time. So with that, thank you very much for watching the demo, and I will stop sharing and send the control back to Ethan.
Thanks, Andy. Great demo. I think Zelene is going to pull up the slides again. So we're going to walk back through. But yeah, like I said, I think as we pull up the slides, it's going back to a bit of what we talked about, right? Of like a bit of this why and some of the core value props. So now that Andy's kind of walked through it, I can cover these just again really quickly, right? It's like, how are we helping our developers faster time to market? We want them to be able to see everything that's going on in their app with this new native OpenTelemetry, being able to see and have a really great understanding, not only of their own app, but also of what Heroku is doing behind the scenes because of our routing platform and because of our new architecture on Fir. The cloud native build packs is another streamlined way to be able to do the same type of easy deployments on Heroku. And now we're specifically supporting OCI images. The trusted scalability, said Andy walked through really great. Some of those new dyno options, when it comes to scale, it's not really just about bigger and better, but a lot of the times it's about what's the right choice. So we're excited to be offering a lot more dyno types, a lot more granularity into choosing your specs to get the right scale that you need at the right time, as well as kind of raise some of those previous ceilings that have been on the Heroku platform. And we're actually just getting started with that. Like we have a lot more headroom that we're excited to keep growing when it comes to those limits to support customers at any scale. As well as some of the different pieces like under the hood here is like most of the dynos on Fir are AWS Graviton ARM64 first. So this is a key difference between Cedar and Fir. We'll look for backwards like portability for x86 dynos as well. But as of right now, we chose to go that route. And then finally, one of the biggest things also is IPv6 support for the more secure networking protocols we have here. And then finally, like I said, future-proofed innovation. We're looking to capture on all of the different cloud native standards that are available. How do we accelerate our roadmap to bring more features onto Heroku, more features to our customers, to our developers, and so we can keep Fir growing. And like I said, one example of that has been a consistent ask is, we need more regions on Heroku. How can we leverage Kubernetes and all those things to grow even more than we did with our private spaces regions last year, and get more similarity between the common runtime and private spaces as well. And so with that, some of the next steps, if you look at our Dev Center, there's the Heroku Generations page. I think we'll have that linked in a second. That goes through a lot of the detail that I talked about Fir and the platform. And there's a really good section on the key differences that you need to know. So when you want to get started, we're excited to have as much usage as we could possibly get on this new platform. So please take a look if you're using private spaces. If you're not, take a look and see how you could start migrating your apps to Fir. There is documentation as well in the Dev Center specifically on how to migrate to Fir, and that ties into like I said, those key differences between the platforms. And then stay in touch. We have a lot of new feature releases coming out that you've probably seen some of the hints of the AI publications that have been going out, but we have a lot that we want to do with this platform and that we're really excited about. So keep an eye out, as I said, on the Dev Center as well. You'll see our list of differences and specifically feature parity items. And those are ones that we are going to be tackling next. And sweet. So now we're going to move to the Q&A, and I've seen like a lot of questions come through. I'm going to work through them the best that I can. One of the things I'm seeing a lot of questions about private spaces. So if you're not familiar with what a private space is, so it's different than our common runtime, which is our multi-tenant control plane. Private spaces are a individually provisioned VPC specifically for that customer. And then everything that runs within that VPC is technically within that private space. So it's a different tier. It's offered at the enterprise level for contracts, but also now online. So you can use a credit card to buy private spaces. And one of the key aspects with Fir is that we decided that we would target that single tenant runtime first to be the first foray into like this new platform, because it really set the precedent as what our product goal and our eventual runtime and platform goal is to bring that Cedar common runtime to Fir as well. So at this point, there's not a common runtime using Fir, but that is definitely on our roadmap. And that's something that to provide multi-tenancy that we'll look to do. But we just needed to lay out specifically the main primitives of the runtime and the platform with Fir using private spaces. One of the other questions that I saw here a lot, just to get it out of the way, is this going to be recorded? This is recorded, and we'll share this out. Another question that I saw, does Fir support AI workflows? The answer right now is yes. If you've seen anything about Heroku MCP, that does all work with Fir because it's independent of the runtime, and it will provision some of the new Fir dynos and the new attributes of the runtime. For Heroku Mia, which is coming soon, you might have seen things on the Heroku blog about that. That is currently not supported with Fir, but it imminently will be. And this is our target to be the go-to platform for a lot of those AI use cases. But right now, Mia specifically works with the Cedar runtime. One of the next questions that I saw a few questions about specifically the networking features of private spaces. That's VPC peering, some of our VPN capabilities. So that was one of the largest things that I've had. We got a lot of feedback during the pilot about those features, about the need for them when it comes to private spaces, and that's something that our team is currently working on now, and it's something that we're looking to imminently deliver as fast as possible. And we know that to be one of the biggest value props of private spaces. So as of right now, that's not supported, but keep an eye out for the Dev Center and our changelog, and we'll have our updates on those VPC, specifically VPC peering, as fast as we can. Another question that I saw in here is, when can I start migrating my existing Cedar apps to Fir? So Fir is now GA as of April 14th, and it's open to anybody who can provision a private space. So at any point you want to start migrating your private space apps or common runtime apps, like I said, if you check out the Dev Center, there's lots of resources there on how to migrate. And again, what are the key differences that you should be aware of when it comes to migration. One of the questions I saw here is, can I still build apps on Cedar? Like Andy kind of showed, or maybe wanted to tackle that one.
So you can totally continue building on Cedar. In fact, I demonstrated an app already running on Cedar in my presentation, and consider building your applications on Fir at the same time. It's basically the same DX as Ethan's been uh, elaborating to us. Basically, do git push Heroku, take your application, do use the migration guide that we've just posted in the chat window as a pre-check. Do your pre-checks, but it's the same developer experience. Just target that particular space that you created for Fir, and you'll be able to do a deployment there. So we're really pushing hard to make sure that you can continue using Cedar as long as you like, but ultimately we want to make it appealing for you to move over to Fir with some of the new features that you've seen around scalability and cloud native build packs and OTel, etc. So feel free to give it a go. It's available now.
Another question, a bit of a thread that I'm also seeing is questions about pricing. Some saying, I enjoy that predictable pricing. How is pricing going to be changing? So for pricing right now with private spaces, if you're not familiar, there's a fixed cost of $1,000 a month that's prorated to the second, as well as your dyno costs. So all of those same list prices are the same. The dynos, though, however, since there's many more options, there's a lot more prices that you can choose from, which was intentional. So like I said, you can really, when you're moving to Fir, you have a lot more optionality into choosing the right scale and then therefore choosing like the right price for you. And we really tried to bring in those small list like dyno sizes that we offer on the common runtime as well on Fir, matched at the same price. So you'll see that we've baselined there. I think one of the biggest product goals that we look to, like transparently, that we looked to capture with Kubernetes and with this runtime is how can we leverage some of these things to bring our costs down. So this is like, as of right now, the costs are the same for private spaces. As we move towards multi-tenancy, a few of those things, our biggest product intention is how can we make Heroku more accessible for more users, and that a lot of times comes at price. So like I said, all the pricing on Fir works the same today. Things are prorated to the second. There's a maximum monthly spend that you can use specifically for dynos and for this space. But as of right now, they are the same for private spaces. And yeah, like I said, if I wasn't clear before, Fir is private space only as of right now. But like I said, multi-tenancy on Fir and moving that common runtime experience to the new Kubernetes platform is definitely on our roadmap. And in the same way, I saw a question, will Fir be available on the common runtime? Like I said, it's a little bit of the opposite, where Fir will become our new multi-tenancy runtime as well. And so we'd like to provide the new runtime with all those new capabilities as a migration path from the Cedar common runtime. I saw one here, is telemetry included in the price or is it extra? Yeah, we're pretty excited about this, that we have kind of the price of the private space bakes in all of the telemetry capabilities that we're able to add. So there's no additional cost, there's no additional metered usage for telemetry and all this open telemetry support that you have on Heroku. Also saw another question, will Fir support containers? That is one of the key differences that is listed in the Dev Center. Right now, we are not supporting the container builds that have previously run on Cedar. We're doing this because if you look at the cloud native build packs and if you look at where we really want to go with our roadmap based on cloud native build packs, that's like our key build system that we're looking to move forward with. And like I said, it's all to capture a lot of those cloud native ecosystem benefits. And we believe that having that unified kind of build pattern of cloud native build packs will help us when it comes to that. I also saw a question, will Fir be supporting custom OCI images? At this time, it does not for cloud native build packs, but that is something that we've considered supporting forward. I saw a question, how long will Cedar be supported? So that's a great question, a while. Like we are just starting out with this new platform. That's why we chose, like I said, to start with the single tenancy, look at migration patterns, find out what are the most important things to our customers, find out what works really well, and you'll have all the information about what's happening with Cedar as we move forward with that. But there would be in no world where things would start getting shut down before, we have like a clear path to migration for that. Let's see. I think there is a few questions about add-on compatibility and about like the different plugins. I said Andy showed a bit where you can find what is compatible and what is not compatible as of right now. We're working with all of our partners to make sure we have almost every single like partner on our ecosystem compatible with Fir. And I think that some of the biggest ones that are lagging a little bit behind are the observability ones, like Papertrail, I think is called out here. A few asks, and that's because of just some of the key differences between our drains with telemetry signals and allowing our add-on partners how they read and write from those telemetry signals. So all of that, like I said, the telemetry team is working on right now, making sure all of our partners and specifically those observability ones can be brought on to that open telemetry story. And then I think there's a second part of that. There's not currently a supported automation of the migration right now, but that'll also be something as we move forward and keep expanding our platform. And as we work towards that multi-tenancy, that we'll be looking at kind of like a little bit more Heroku curated migration paths. So is there any changes related to Postgres databases? No, so all of the first-party Heroku data add-ons are supported on Fir. Like I said, it's a little bit independent of the runtime itself because they're added on to the runtime. So any of the current database usage that our customers use today will be supported in Fir. I saw a question for upgrade paths about add-on providers. So yes, if you look at our migration guides, you would have to reprovision the add-ons that are attached to your app when you move between the runtimes. Saw a question about GPU workloads on Fir. That's something that's near and dear to my heart. What's one of the reasons that it was like when we think about more and expanded AI use cases and we think about Heroku's development in the AI space, we needed the right platform to be building on that. So GPU workloads are not currently available on Fir, but that is something, like I said, if you've seen anything on our roadmaps, something that we do care about and that we're evaluating right now, specifically with this new runtime. Seeing a question about smaller dynos. Yeah, so like if you look at the on the Dev Center, there's like the technical specifications of all the different dynos where you can look at all the different specs, and you'll see that like within these private spaces on Fir, there's now the option to look and feel exactly like the Cedar common runtime. So you have a lot of those smaller dynos to allow you within your private space to better experiment, have better, like said, targeted scale for your applications that didn't exist before on Cedar with a little bit more of that limited dyno offering. Looking through one of these questions here, trying to find any that I didn't quite answer.
There's a question here, Ethan, about what kind of criteria will be available to invoke horizontal auto scaling under Kubernetes. Has that changed that behavior since Cedar? What are your thoughts on that?
That's what with the new open telemetry, we are completely revamping our first party auto scaling. If you've used it right now, it's kind of like the P95 metric. And that will all be changing to have a lot more dynamics to auto scaling as well. And that hasn't been released yet, but that is also something that's coming on our roadmap to better, have more intelligent horizontal auto scaling.
There's also a good question in here, Ethan, about Heroku App Link and if that integration works with Fir.
As of right now, I think the answer is similar to Mia, where right now the main supported runtime is Cedar, but that will be the first place that we would like to have all of Heroku App Link running as soon as Fir is like fully online.
And one more great one here. Does Heroku plan to continue using mainstream versions of cloud native services, or do we plan on making our own forks?
Yeah, so that's one of the time to market pieces for us internally. That was a little bit of the older way of Heroku of doing it, of kind of like those custom forks, but we're really looking to leverage as much as we can in the cloud native space and take advantage of bringing features on faster because of that. And again, that's kind of like what the whole baseline of this platform is for. Any other good ones that you found, Zillian? So there's a lot, which is great.
There's a lot,
I really,
yeah.
yeah, I want to
I see a good question
like,
here. Can you confirm, Ethan, if Router 2 and HTTP 2 is the default for apps?
yes, that router 2, it's a great question. So that was also another project near and dear to my heart with the networking team. So router 2.0 is our new router for the common runtime. And we were able to utilize all of those same libraries and the things that we built for router 2.0 on Fir. So HTTP2 and all those things are supported, as well as wildcard ACM. So any of those new features that we were able to build out for the common runtime most recently, those are now available on Fir. Like I said, that was kind of like the evolution of router 2.0 into like this new runtime.
There's a good
Amazing.
question here about what are the benefits of open telemetry over existing logging mechanisms. Basically, the open telemetry, and I'll post a link in the chat in a moment, really helps you break out the tracing, the metrics, and the log information, and also create some context between those from a request perspective versus logs where you had to rely on that data being there and then match that information. So OTel is really formalizing what type of data you're capturing and emitting, and also allowing you to structure it more thoroughly, which means that you can do more accurate analytics and faster analytics on your log data. So it's well worth trying some of the OTel providers to really feel that, because that's the way that you can appreciate that. But I'll send a link to the OTel project page, and they've got a great video on this as well. So great question, thank you.
Let's squeeze in one last question, then we're going to wrap up. We've got a question here on if Shield or private space is going to be available with smaller dynos.
Yep, that's what I just wanted to tackle that. So Shield spaces are on our roadmap. We're kind of rethinking a bit how and what the Shield offering should look like on Heroku, with a more like leaning much closer to what are the specific compliance features that are required, and not having a fully separate and fully different price tiered like dyno offering. So hopefully making that compliance story and that availability of like, again, the best like things that come from Shield available on Fir in a little bit more bespoke way. So like I said, that's why we didn't launch with that now. We're hoping to reevaluate that. And like I said, make the compliance story on Heroku a little bit more out of the box and a little bit more priced better in the market.
Thank you. I know I said that was the last question, but one more.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a bunch of questions come in, and if you missed it earlier in the Q&A, can you clarify, Ethan, again on what the migration process is for existing non-private spaces Cedar apps? Can those migrate today?
Yep, you can migrate. Like I said, there's two good documentations on our dev center, is how do you migrate from the common runtime to a private space, period. And then we have how do you migrate from a Cedar private space to a Fir private space. But the migration path from the common runtime to Fir is exactly the same as like that other document. So if you have apps that are running on the common runtime now, you can bring them over to Fir in a private space. And I saw a few different things, about like this cost of the space as kind of like the main blocker and main prohibitor. I totally understand that. That's why the multi-tenancy roadmap on Fir is one of the things we're most excited about, to be able to, capture that customer base. So like I said, please keep an eye on the roadmap as we work towards the kind of common runtime on Fir aspects. So there's so many questions in here that I feel like I can write an entire new dev article. So I might take some of this feedback and maybe expand the Heroku generations page, thanks to all the feedback and the great questions in here. Really appreciate it. I'm sorry if I couldn't get to your exact question in here, but
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. We are at time. Thank you, Ethan and Andy, for the wonderful presentation and demo. Stay in touch with us and have a great day. We'll be sending out a recording of the session afterwards in the follow-up email, so keep an eye out for that.
Thank you so much,
Thank
everybody,
you
for the
all.
time, for the
Thanks.
questions.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.